when maybe some people think that, oh, this issue of Galamsey is being overflogged, what comes to mind?
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to you and good morning to your listeners. When it comes to the issue of Galamsey, this has become a national canker that you have to deal with. If you are not affected directly, you'll be affected indirectly. And I believe people are saying that we are making too much noise over this Galamsey issue, and probably maybe they think that this canker is not affecting them. But today, my discussion with you is going to based on the effect that is going to even have on those that are even living in Accra, thinking that they are far away from this Galamsey. I think it's high time we let the public know that this is a national cancer and it affects everybody, not those that live around the water bodies or something. And we should all wake up and take pragmatic steps to help mitigate this menace. So basically, I think people don't know the devastating effects of this Galamsey issue. That is why they think we are making so much noise.
Okay, all right. And just a while ago, you said that you're here to talk about the impact of Galamsey, especially on those of us in Accra. I find that interesting because, I mean, here in the Greater Accra region, as far as I recall or I see, there's no illegal mining activity happening in Accra. Perhaps what we'll be dealing with primarily will have to be with pollution, people building in waterways, among others, and then the issue of land and all that. But Galamsey, Accra, how is that connected?
Okay, thank you very much. When it comes to the issue of Galamsey, research have shown that 14 out of the 16 regions are actually practicing or has experienced Galamsey canker. So currently in Ghana, it's only Greater Accra and that of Volta region that research have shown that there is no Galamsey activity. But aside that, all the 16 regions, they are Galamsey ongoing. But economically, going on economic issue, the arable land that we use in cultivating or growing of our cocoa is now being destroyed because of our Galamsey activity. Our forest cover is being destroyed and everything. And remember, when we lost these arable lands to Galamsey, one thing is that we are going to feel the economic effects. At first, Ghana used to import about 1.5 million metric tons of cocoa, but now we are reduced to about 560 metric tons.
You're talking about Ghana exporting?
Yeah, exporting cocoa. So at the end of it, economically, we are going to have the negative implication of Galamsey activity, and this is going to affect all of us, not those that are living there. That notwithstanding, research have also shown that when you use mercury in an extraction, and after you evaporate this mercury to get your pure gold, this mercury that is evaporated in our atmosphere can even travel 1,000 kilometers. And when you take Accra to Bolga, it's not up to even 1,000 kilometers. But this mercury that we are talking about, when it's being evaporated into our atmosphere, it can travel this distance. So imagine those that are living in this area where there's Galamsey, and imagine those that are even living far away from this Galamsey area. In 2016, there was a research that was done by Samuel Tebiri and his colleagues. They tried to actually go to the hotspot of Galamsey activities. In this country, when it comes to districts with Galamsey hotspot, it's Takwa in Swahim, Pistia Uni Valley, and Amenfi East. And I think Takwa in Swahim alone, we are having about 3,648 Galamsey sites just in one district. And when it comes to that of Amenfi East, we are having about 1,197. And when you go to, what's the name? When you get to Pistia Uni Valley, we have 1,130 Galamsey sites. So this research was focusing on these three major districts. And what they find out was that when they pick samples, that's blood samples from people that were living in this Galamsey area, precisely Takwa in Swahim and Pistia Uni Valley, the mercury concentration in their blood was ranging between 12 microgram per liter to about 358 microgram per liter. And the WHO acceptable level of mercury in our blood shouldn't even exceed 10 microgram per liters. So look at the effect it's going to have on them. Look at the amount of mercury, about 1,000% increase in their blood. And aside that, the reason why I brought this research was on their water bodies. They decided now to check the mercury or heavy metals levels on their water bodies. When they check these mercury levels in about 9 rivers, they found out that the mercury level was as high as 300 microgram per liters. And the amount that's supposed to be, that is accepted according to the EPA standard, should be 2 microgram per liter. But one research that they also juxtaposed with was the fact that they also sample water bodies from Cape Coast Municipal Assembly. These were areas that was spotted to have no Galamsey activity. But when they also sample the water levels and determine or evaluate the heavy metals concentration, they realized that even though there was no Galamsey activities in Cape Coast Municipal Assembly, but the mercury level was high. Why? Because we know that water travels.
Okay.
So meaning the water body was contaminated in Takwa, and it was able to be transported to that of people living in Cape Coast. So even though there was no Galamsey activities, or they are far away from the Galamsey, where Galamsey is being
those
practiced,
sites, yes.
those sites, but they also end up drinking from this water body that is being contaminated. And one thing we should know is that this water that we destroy them also affect our water tables. When we say our water tables, meaning any borehole you dig around this Galamsey area, you are going to get water that are having this mercury in them.
It will seep through the
because
earth.
the water travel under the earth. That's the water table. So sometimes you'll be thinking that the water is not connecting, but under the earth is connected.
Yeah.
So you will be in Takwa during the Galamsey, and someone in Cape Coast will be having the effect. So this Galamsey, we cannot say is actually far away from us. A research study has also shown that the Apotoyu or the Asanka that we even use, that's the earthenware, when it's made with clay, or when it's made with the sand that is coming from these Galamsey sites,
Yes.
anytime you grind anything in these
You consume a
Asanka,
part
you
of
are
it.
consuming, or you are exposing yourself to mercury. And a long-term exposure to mercury will lead to a lot of myriad of diseases, which I think today we are going to mention some of them. So imagine, do you know where your Asanka is coming from? And research have also shown that when this mercury is being evaporated for you to get your pure gold, when it gets into our atmosphere, it can also settle down on our soils and also our water bodies. And one thing is that when they get to our soils and our water bodies, there are microorganisms in our water or in our soils, and that converts it from the elemental form. You know, what we use for extraction is the elemental or the metallic form. But when they get into our atmosphere, it's being converted by microorganisms to the organic form, which is the methyl or ethyl mercury. And this is neurotoxic, and this is even having major health implication on our health than even the form that they use in the extraction of this mercury. So any crops that you grow or cultivate or harvest from this land are having mercury in them, because the mercury is going to be picked up by these crops that we grow on this soil. So we have to also ask ourselves, we are in Accra, do you know where our yam is coming from, where our cassava is coming from? And research has shown that even cassava can pick a lot of them, and that of maize, cassava, and that of maize. Because the research has shown that the monocotyledon plant, and an example of these plants are the maize and what I've mentioned. So we are in Accra and we are consuming all these food products, and we are saying that we should go to the Galamsey area to demonstrate, because Galamsey is not happening in Accra. But remember, we do that in Accra. This is the seat of government, and for us to make any change in this system or in these Galamsey activities, it has to come from the central government. Though I believe that it is best that the government take the precautionary measures to ensure the safety of the citizens, that is Ghanaians. Because as we are here, before had our breakfast, our porridge, some people have gobe and everything. We do know where these are coming from. What if the crops that we used to prepare all this food are coming from these Galamsey sites? Our fishes in these water bodies that is also contaminated also pick this mercury up. And remember, this mercury we are talking about is non-biodegradable, meaning it can never be destroyed. It's non-biodegradable.
No, because I wanted to ask, I was going to ask you, you talk about how these deposits will end up in our food and, water and everything. But we sometimes even overcook our meals. So cassava, for instance, we love fufu.
Yeah.
So we are going to pound fufu. We've bought cassava and we've cooked it enough to pound for our fufu. Are you saying that the mineral or metal deposits in this cassava, no matter how long we cook it,
Yes.
it will still be there?
Yes, it's non-biodegradable. So no matter how you cook it, like it does not destroy it. So it can be recycled. So when it gets into our environment, it's just recycling in our environment, and there's no way it's going to be biodegraded. And when you even take cassava, you are even exposing yourself to cyanide and also that of the mercury itself. Let's say this cassava was cultivated from Galamsey sites. And remember, that's why sometimes before you even boil your cassava, you have to actually soak it in water for some time so that the cyanide level will come down before you cook. Because cyanide is also is known to be carcinogenic, and cyanide is also a substance that is also used to, or chemical that are also used to extract gold. So all these things are there. So when we say non-biodegradable, meaning it can never be destroyed. Some research findings have stipulated that the half-life ranges from, I think, 444 years times 2. So maybe 900, almost 900 years. 400.
For those metals?
For those, that is the mercury.
The mercury,
the
yes.
half-life is almost 900 years. But one thing is that who has ever lived to 900 years to know that that's the half-life? Because it's not biodegradable, it can never be destroyed. But this is an expert opinion that they projected that at least when it's found in our soils or in our environment, this is how long it's going to live. So it's just recycling amongst us. And one thing that we need to also know that those that are living in this Galamsey area, when they come home to their spouses, their shirts and everything is being contaminated with this mercury. And they will expose their spouses and children to this mercury. So that...
How is it that mercury, for instance, will end up on somebody's shirt?
Yes, because when they are evaporating the mercury from the gold, they use the mercury to trap the gold so that they can get the pure gold. After that, they have to evaporate. After it catches the gold, they have to evaporate the mercury off. So after evaporating the mercury, when it evaporates, it gets into the atmosphere and it has to condense back on our soil. That's what we're talking about. But when it's been evaporated, it's also forced on our shirts. And when it's forced on our shirts, when we come back home, we are exposing our children and our wife, because our wife are those that are going to wash these clothes. And mercury can be picked by skin contact. So washing these clothes, you are being exposing, and your spouse is working at Galamsey area, you are being exposed to this. And when we say those that are working in Galamsey area, we say those that are actually involved in Galamsey directly and indirectly. Because when you go to Galamsey site, there are people selling pure water, people selling food, people selling all sorts of things. These are all people that are affected with this Galamsey. So if you are even selling, even in that area, that locality and everything, when you come back home, you are going to expose your children or your spouse to these devastating effect of this mercury. Remember, mercury can be picked by the skin, by skin contact. It can just be picked. And one thing is that when you also evaporate this mercury from it all, evaporating, once that the vapor, you sometimes inhale the vapor, and the vapor is able to pass through your factory nerve straight to your brain. And when it gets to your brain, because it has affinity to proteins in your brain, it can stay in your brain for even 20 years. Research have shown 20 good years. And this is going to cause neurological problem or mental disorders. And one thing is that when it doesn't get into your brain, it also gets into your blood. When it gets into your blood, it changes from the elemental form to an inorganic form. That is meaning it undergoes oxidation. And the major site of deposition is the kidney, because the kidney, what protects the kidney or surrounds the kidney is a lipid layer. And the mercury too is lipophilic, meaning it's lipid loving. So that's where it deposits the most when it gets into our blood. When it gets deposited there for some time, your body will try to fight it, because it's so supposed to be there. And by way of fighting it, it will cause inflammation of the kidney, and eventually it can lead to kidney failure. And when you get kidney failure, the only remedy is for you to have dialysis or transplant. And one thing about this kidney, devastating effect of this mercury on the kidney, is that when it is actually accumulating in our body and trying to destroy our kidney, we will never know. because the kidney comes with unnoticeable symptoms, meaning you'll be having you'll be having the mercury and your kidney will be destroying and you are not aware, because you have various stages of the kidney disease. You have the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. Sometimes you have to get to the last phase, which is the kidney failure, before you end up
being diagnosed,
before you end up knowing, you feel the signs and symptoms before you go to the hospital, and that time it is too late. That's why we in Forensic Investigation for National Development Ghana, we are calling for toxicological screening for each Ghanaian. Aside from you going to screen for a kidney function test, you have to also go and screen these heavy metal levels in your blood, at least for you to have an informed, because when you have this mercury or heavy metals in your blood, at least your doctors can show you the diets and what to do for you to actually reduce the levels of this mercury or these heavy metals in your body. So basically, that's that. And if it does not deposit in your kidney, it can also deposit in your central nervous system. That's your brain and the spinal cord. And that can lead to paralysis. Remember, when it deposits even in your brain, it also kills the brain cells, and the part of the body that is being controlled by that brain cell that has been destroyed will be napped or will be paralyzed. So kidney failure, mercury exposure or heavy metals exposure can lead to stroke, paralysis, and the rest.
So from the research you have done, is it solely mercury? You mentioned cyanide that they also use, especially with regard to cassava, but with the metals that they use and the harmful effect, is it only mercury?
No.
And cyanide.
When it comes to gold extraction in Ghana, we use the major ones that we use. The major extraction method is the cyanide extraction method and that of the mercury. So when they don't use the cyanide, they use the mercury. But one thing is that when you are digging the ground just to get the gravel so that you can get your gold, when you dig this ground, you are exposing yourself to other forms of heavy metal, because this heavy metal we talk about, lead, arsenic, cadmium, they are all found under the earth, meaning they are found in the earth crust. So as you are even digging, you are exposing yourself to mercury, because mercury is also part of the heavy metal that can be found in the earth crust. And people dig, those that are involved in Galamsey, they dig deeper. And with that, you are even exposing yourself to other heavy metal. That's why sometimes when we are talking about Galamsey, we mention about the cyanide, we mention about the mercury, the lead, arsenic, and cadmium. Because aside using this mercury and cyanide for extraction, when you dig deeper, you are even exposing yourself or exposing the environment to other forms of heavy metals. And these metals too are known to be neurotoxic, reprotoxic. When they say reprotoxic, meaning it can affect the fertility or affect sperm's quality. So recently I wrote an article on how it affects our sperms or the fertility of humans.
Now, with these mining areas, for instance, do you notice a certain trend with regard to maybe various disease conditions? Have you noticed, because of the research you're doing in relation to the toxicology, are you seeing a certain trend of diseases in those areas where you can say that you can draw a linkage between the prevalence of illegal mining there and those ailments or sicknesses we're seeing?
Aside the research that was done in 2016, whereby the resident from Takwa in Swahim was sampled and their blood level was determined, and they realized that the mercury concentration is high and above the WHO threshold. Another thing that research that was carried out was on the correlation between the kidney disease and Galamsey activities, and this was in 2017, whereby people from Takwa in Swahim reported to Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, and 65 of them came for dialysis. When they say dialysis, meaning the kidney has failed.
Yes.
And these people, all of them, were reported from Takwa in Swahim.
60?
Yeah, 65.
65.
Takwa in Swahim. And this was a report by Dr. Daniel Asari, the then CEO of Cape Coast Teaching Hospital.
And this was in
2017.
2017. Okay.
And 65 people reported to the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital. And one thing is that they realized that those people are either directly dependent or indirectly dependent on this Galamsey menace. And that same year, when you get to Konfanoche Teaching Hospital, there was a nephrologist, Dr. Elliot Stano, who also made a shocking revelation that all those people that were reporting to the dialysis unit of Konfanoche Teaching Hospital were also people that are engaged directly in Galamsey activities. So you can see that there's epidemiological relationship or epidemiological data that suggests that kidney failure or the rate of Galamsey is leading to the rise of kidney failure in Ghana. And this is undisputed because there are a lot of findings that also correlate mercury, lead, arsenic, cadmium to the rise of kidney cases. Because there are, if I'm not exaggerating, there are about more than 300 researchers that have established mercury and induced nephrotoxicity. When they say nephrotoxicity, meaning destruction of the filtering units in our kidney.
Okay.
And a lot of research has been done on that. So there is no doubt, and I can say confidently that the rise of Galamsey, because we never saw the rise of Galamsey activity, the rise of kidney failure in 2000. Because there was a minimal Galamsey activities in this country.
Is it not more lifestyle related?
Yes, because when we are talking about kidney failure, for instance, when talking about kidney or kidney problem, we have a lot of risk factors. You cannot actually pinpoint one causal effect of kidney disease. So because of that, research has also shown that people that are having hypertension, diabetes, are also stand a high risk of getting kidney disease. And sometimes you can even born with congenital abnormalities, whereby you can be born without a kidney, or you can be born with one kidney. These are all factors that can also lead to kidney failure.
Okay.
But this Galamsey we are talking about is also an undisputed risk factor that we cannot neglect, because this is glaring at us, and this is something we can do something about.
Okay.
Unlike the others that we cannot control, because hypertension sometimes may come and we will not be able to control, but to manage.
All right.
And this is something we can do something about. That's why we have to focus on the advocacy against Galamsey.
Okay. You mentioned the WHO threshold with regard to mercury. Can you kindly reiterate it and compare it to the levels we saw, for instance, in the 2016?
Yeah.
Yeah, 2016 survey.
And that was 2016. And that 2016, as we're talking about, most of our water body was still even clear.
Clear compared to now.
Compared to now. And even at that, look at the levels of mercury.
Okay, so what was the level in 2016?
In 2016, the level of mercury from river bodies around Takwa in Swayim was 300 microgram per liter.
Okay.
And one thing is that according to the WHO or the EPA standard, it shouldn't be more than 2 microgram per liters. So from 2 to 300.
So we had that was WHO's own, and EPA's is 2
microgram per liters. Yeah.
Per liter, and then as of 2016 was 300.
300. So we don't know.
So we don't know what the stance at now.
Yes.
Wow. So even in 2016 there, but we had exceeded it.
Yes, we've exceeded it.
Far ahead.
So aside destroying, even contaminating our water body, but one thing I have to make it clear is that if our water bodies is becoming clear, it doesn't
mean that the pollution is away.
The pollution is away. Maybe the turbidity level will go down, because the mud will settle down, but the mercury never settled down, the arsenic never settled down, and all the other heavy metal that is found in this water is not settled down. But one thing we should ask ourselves, that we have the means to get these heavy metals out of the water bodies.
Can that be done?
Have the experts.
Can that be done?
For that to be done, it can be done. But look at the last size of our water bodies. Meaning it's going to be some impossible tax, and we have to spend about almost $4 billion United States dollars, whereby we went for IMF for $3 billion. So if you have the $4 billion, we wouldn't have even gone for IMF loan or something.
Because I want to know whether there's a possibility of the water bodies curing themselves, because I mean, rivers, they have a source where they flow from. So the expectation is that if we stop those activities, the water would flow gradually, and then everything would just go away.
But if the water is flowing gradually, where is it going? It's going back to the sea. It's going back to the sea, and the fishes in the sea will consume, and it's going to be recycling. But one thing that we should know, that when it comes to the land, we have something we call phytoremediation, whereby you can grow certain crops like broccoli and the rest that can pick these heavy metals. But without crops, you are not going to consume them. So you grow them and to pick the mercury, and from there we burn them that way, so that we don't consume them. That's the only way we can do for that of the land. But they come to the river, it becomes very difficult. That's where we need a lot of resources, a lot of experts, because our water bodies has been destroyed. And imagine the BTT level that's supposed to be the BTT level in our water, our safe drinking water shouldn't be more than 5. Shouldn't be more than 5. But when Ghana Water Company recently gave their communique out, we realized that they were having somewhere 1,400 nephelometric turbidity units. 1,400. And their plants can only work on water bodies that are having maybe 7,000 NTU. But when they check the water bodies, they were having 1,400. And there are people that even consume this water directly without even. And people are saying that, okay, then we are not going to take water from Ghana Water, but we are going to that borehole. Remember, this borehole, if you are living in Galamsey area, the same metals will seep in this water.
And for the water we drink, most these days, mostly a lot of people taking bottled water or sachet water, which are believed to be purified. Going through the purification process, are you saying as well that the metal deposits in there or any other impurities cannot be removed 100%?
Okay, so when it comes to the water bodies, even Ghana Water Company tried to remove some.
Okay.
Yes, so I don't want to go through the stages. There are 9 stages in their purification process.
Okay.
But let's go back to the sachet water. So currently there is research underway. We are trying to sample 160 pure water, different brands of pure water across the country, and we are going to determine the heavy metal levels because Galamsey has been a surge. Has become,
there's been a surge in Galamsey activities.
Yeah,
okay.
So we are trying to. But one thing about which I can confidently say is that our pure water are not good for consumption. But when it comes to the bottled water, for that one, when it comes to the bottled water, they subject it to another purification process called the reverse osmosis.
Okay.
And reverse osmosis has the tendency removing heavy metals from these water bodies.
So
from this water. But when it comes to sachet water, you are just buying them 50%. So nobody will subject it to reverse osmosis. So they use a filter to just filter the water, and that's all. And that doesn't take away the heavy metals at all.
And you just said a while ago that our sachet water they are not safe for drinking. None of them.
None of them, because they don't subject it to reverse osmosis. And if only this water that they are depending on are waters that are being polluted, there's a caveat. If the water that they use are being polluted by these Galamsey activities and there's heavy metals concentration in the water, then it is not safe for drinking.
Okay, so if the water bodies
or the water they use,
if the water they use, for instance, is polluted,
yes,
the current procedure they use in purification
for sachet water,
is not safe.
Heavy metals will still be in.
It will be in there, and so therefore not making it safe for consumption.
Yeah, safe for consumption. Wow. And the only one is the bottled water. That's the reverse osmosis. So just yesterday I published on Modern Ghana about how Galamsey is also affecting our pharmaceutical industry.
Yes, they complained about how, for instance, what they need for the infusions and all that.
Yes, because we have several formulations of drug, the syrup, the suspensions, everything. They use water to do all these things. And if this water that they use in preparing our syrups or for our medical formulations are contaminated. One thing is that when you go to their industries, they have the reverse osmosis. But remember, when the heavy metals are too much, they are going to make sure that they are going to filter this, and it's going to cost them a lot. Yeah. And at the end of it, they are going to put this on the consumers, because at the end of it, I cannot have high cost of expenditure in just filtering the water, and I'll give the medicine to you as 22 cedis or something. So it's going to affect it. And if the care is not taken, maybe they are going to allow 30 heavy metals to still be in the drug. And that's going to affect the safety and the efficacy of the drug itself. Okay. But before the drug will also come out, I think FDA is doing their work. So they'll make sure that the water they use are free from these heavy metals, or the drug that comes to the market are free from these heavy metals. But one thing is that it's going to cost them a lot, and they are going to impose the cost on the consumers. So this is something we have to seriously look at as a country when it comes to Galamsey. Okay,
and as we wrap up, what can we do on our own to also protect ourselves from the pollution of illegal mine? What can we do?
when
in
it comes to protection, for how long are we going to protect ourselves when the government is maybe when the government is not putting in enough effort to help stop this Galamsey? Because when you don't stop this Galamsey, the levels are going to continue to rise. And the only recommendation that I could give is that we go in for toxicological screening to check for these heavy metals concentrations in our blood. And after knowing our status, there are certain foods that we can take that can help excrete all these heavy metals from our body. So the first thing, we go in for toxicological screening and call for a ban on small-scale mining, because now we don't know. For now, we don't know who is involved in small-scale mining and who is doing Galamsey. And sometimes people also work under lances, and they work with the lances, but at the end of it, they are polluting the water bodies, but in the name of we are having the lances. So for now, we don't actually know the difference between the illegal small-scale mining and the small-scale mining. So the best thing is that we put a total ban on that and go back to our drawing table, and so that we do and put certain measures down, and we can reintroduce it maybe later, but in a more sustainable and a safer way. And one thing is that the government must also create employment for the indigenous living around this Galamsey area, because that's also their source of livelihood. So trying to stop them will be very difficult. So let's face the reality. We have to create more jobs for the youth, and also try to look for an alternative source of mining, whereby we can use other chemicals that may not be toxic to the human health, such as the Boras method of extraction, which uses salts in extracting the gold, and not necessarily mercury or cyanide. So we can look for a more sustainable way in our extraction method. We can also look at creating employment for the youth, because that's their only source of livelihood. And government must also repeal the LI 2462 that's allow unrestricted mining in our forest reserve. And with that, I think we can help mitigate the effect.
Just a quick one. What about the chlorine? Chlorine we use in the water purification process. Does it not deal with the
antibacterial?
So that deals with bacteria
and other microbes.
But not the metals.
Metals.
Wow. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Yakubu Adam, for joining us here this morning on the Morning Star to help us better appreciate the impact of illegal mining on our everyday lives here. It says, look, listen, even when you are in your home and you think you have a borehole that you're using, so you are safe, you are not entirely safe, because these waters can seep into the earth, will seep into the earth and will eventually get your water. Yakubu Adam, he's a toxicologist and forensic investigation for National Development Ghana, Find GH. Thank you very much once again for joining us here on the Morning Star. This is the Morning Star here on Star